Today is May the 23rd, and we would like to welcome all the saints and sinners, non-specified religious preference others, and our subscribers. How are you today?
Well, that question always bugs me or stuns me because every time I think I have to answer what happened to me and what's going to happen and how I feel, I catch myself thinking, no, that's being polite. That's you being polite. How are you today? I'm fine is the standard answer, but I don't think that's qualified. I'm fine.
No.
How are you?
No, I don't want to know that you're fine.
Yeah, but look at the bright side. You already know.
Do I? Well, it's interesting to me that the topic of the saints, because there are, the saint we're going to discuss today is Joan of Arc, but there's many saints that people know casually. A lot of people know that Saint Jude is the patron saint of hopeless causes. And that was my mother's favorite saint. She had 6 kids, and I'm the oldest, and we were always getting into this or that. And so St. Jude was my mother's favorite saint. And I'm named after Patrick, St. Patrick. And there's St. Teresa, and there's just so many different saints. But I was surprised to find out that the Vatican Council, which met in the 1960s, I think like 1962 or 63, something like that, they gathered together 2,625 people, and their topic for the meeting was addressing the needs of the modern world. So imagine you sent out a memo to somebody, and the subject line was, let's address the needs of the modern world. So in the Second Vatican Council, one of the documents that came out of it was called the Universal Call to Holiness. And most people usually think, priests and nuns, those are the ones that are going to become saints, because the rest of us are just sinners wandering around in this world of darkness. But this document that came out in 1962 says that we're all called to be saints, and we're all called to be holy. How does that make you feel?
Well, I feel excited, but I feel even more excited because just 2 days ago we spoke about the angels, and then we have somehow switched to the subject of Joan of Arc. And I know that Joan of Arc claimed that she was inspired by visions of saints and angels.
Wow.
What did you actually see? I don't know, but at least that's rumors. I love her figure. Sorry, go on.
Her body?
No, I mean her
person
image.
Oh.
What I say that in history.
Right.
Everything I know about Joan of Arc mostly comes from this movie, I guess, in the 90s, I guess.
What's the name of the movie?
Was it French? I don't know. Joan of Arc. It's called Joan of Arc, I think. So basically, everything I know about Joan of Arc comes from this movie. How much do you know about her?
Who are the actors in it? Because there are a lot of movies made about Joan of Arc. I happen to just briefly recall an old black and white silent film, and I don't even know who the actors are. So this one that you're talking about is in color, and who are some of the actors in it?
Yeah, I remember that Mila Jovovich was starred as Joan of Arc in this. I don't remember how the movie was called. Was it called The Messenger? I don't remember. It was the story of Joan of Arc. I guess it was 1999. I was in London at the time. But it's in English. It was in English, absolutely. Mila Jovovich. You know this actress, Mila Jovovich?
No.
No? Well, she's... I think she's half Russian, half Ukrainian. I guess she was born in Kiev. I'm not sure, but she has a Slavic origin. She's very famous. Have you seen The Fifth Element with Bruce Willis?
Chief Element?
Fifth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Fifth.
Fifth? No.
Yeah. Well, maybe you should have. She started there too.
I'm gonna put that on my to-do list. Since we've been talking about angels, and
Yep.
it's really weird because one of our subscribers is very fond of Saint Martin de Porres, and also another subscriber. His name is Martin, and then we have another subscriber, Massimo de Angelis, which means Massimo of the Angels. And then I have a very favorite priest that was here in Dallas. He's since moved out to the City of Angels, Los Angeles, Father Don. Like there's just angels everywhere. Yesterday, I went, I never really know if I'm in doubt, should I go out? But I thought, well, I need to get some gas in my car and I need to pick up some bread and I need to do this. So I'm going to go ahead and just run up to the Quick Trip. Well, when you think you're going to go out for a quick trip, that ain't going to happen. So I go to this convenience store and I'm chit-chatting with a couple people. And then all of a sudden there's this woman, a very beautiful, kind of light black, very pretty young lady who is working there. And she's kind of sweeping up and kind of organizing the chips. And she says something to me. And I said, what did you say? I said, I don't think I know you. I know Zeta who works here. She goes, I said, what's your name? She says, I'm Gabriel. So Gabriel is a famous angel. I go, oh, hi, Gabriel. Then I went over to the ice cube section to fill up my cup with some ice cube. And I thought, wow, there's like so many angels everywhere. Then I came back to my apartment where I live, and there's this little golf cart where the repairmen ride around on the golf cart, fixing air conditioners and fixing the plumbing and fixing stuff that's broken. And I suddenly realized the name of the two guys on the golf cart. The main repair guy's name is Raphael, and his assistant, this little skinny guy, his name is Angel. So I began to feel like I was surrounded by angels. It was a little bit spooky.
Synchronicity type of spookiness.
Yeah, it was very, very, very strange. And then there was somebody that I know in another platform called MeWe. It's kind of like Facebook. This person happens to live near the city of Reims, Reims. And Reims is the traditional city in France where the coronation of the kings take place. And I kept thinking, wow, that's so weird that this person from MeWe world kind of reached out to me to tell me something. And I kept thinking, wow, how could he know that we're going to make an episode about Joan of Arc? And I thought, no, he doesn't know that. It's just another moment of synchronicity. But in the story of Joan of Arc, there are signs, there are symbols, there are dreams, there are messages, there are lawyers. There's so many lawyers everywhere that I started having lawyer anxiety. You know I have lawyer anxiety, right?
I don't know what that means. You afraid of lawyers, or you developed fear? Not afraid, just developed awareness of lawyers, or what?
You know that I'm like at the end of the world, the only thing that's going to be left is going to be cockroaches and lawyers. I mean, lawyers make money off of the suffering of others. Like they're like the vilest creatures of the earth. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but when I was raising my daughters, I just always wanted them to do something that would make them happy. And then I understand I gave them a lot of conflicting messages. For example, one daughter just wanted to be an artist. She was very talented. She won art contests. She loved to draw. She loved to paint. And when she was a little girl, I said, well, you can't tell people you're going to be an artist. No one will think you're serious. Just start telling people you want to be a lawyer. She goes, well, I don't know. I don't even know what a lawyer does. I said, well, they just argue and they make a lot of money. She goes, oh. So at the time, I don't know, she was maybe 12. But then somehow she won this. I found this scholarship where she could go to Washington, D.C. It was called Future Lawyers of America. And I didn't have any money to send her to that conference. And then somehow a lot of really interesting things happened that she was able to go. And then you know, this creature that I have created, I mean, my daughter is a lawyer, and now she has returned to her true roots as an artist, and she's thrown off the cloak of the lawyer, but her confirmation name was Joan of Arc. So in the Catholic Church, when you're kind of finishing adolescence and you're going to start college, you're kind of, 17, 16, 17 years old, you take these classes, and then your parents, of course, force you to go. And then you talk about, well, I had my faith as a kid, and now I choose my faith as a young adult. And then everybody chooses a confirmation name. And this one daughter chose the name Joan of Arc. And it was so weird because the church that we were going to at the time, it was called St. Cyril's of Alexandria. On the left side of the church, you know what the name of the street was?
What?
Guess.
Joan of Arc Street?
Yes.
Lucky guess. Hey, you know what? I think what surprises me, she was born 600 years ago. And I am sure I saw the poster from Domremy. That's how the village, I guess it's a village or small town called where she was born, and her house where she lived is still standing.
Wow.
Yeah, it's made of, I think, some kind of stone blocks or something, but it's still there. And you can actually go inside and out. It's a museum now. My house won't, last more than 20, I guess, years from now. But how is it possible that 600 years old building is still there?
Okay, well, because it has like supernatural protection on it. Like I know as a little girl, I would go with my grandparents to this shrine. It was like a basilica to Saint Teresa, the little flower of Jesus. There's a couple of Saint Teresas, but we would go there, and there was a little side chapel that had a mock-up of the body of Saint Teresa, which did not decompose when she died, but it just sort of laid there petrified. And I remember as a little girl, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, looking at that thing, thinking like, that's like the most amazing magic in the world. Like, you die, but your body is still kind of preserved. So, the word core, C-O-R-P, core means the body. So if saints, there are some saints whose bodies have not rotted. And also, I would guess that little house that she had made of stones probably has some kind of special God magic on it that keeps it standing. I don't know.
Maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. Do you think she was beautiful? Because every movie depicts different Joan of Arc, and we don't really know what she looked like, right? Because there is no painting, photograph didn't exist at the time.
Well, there are lots and lots of paintings from a long time ago. There's a whole history of the paintings of Joan of Arc.
But they're fictional.
Excuse me.
No?
Do not dismiss art. Art has a certain truth to it. So one of the things we know is factual was that she was a maiden, which means she was a young girl. She was not yet married. And she told her parents about some dreams she had. And then her parents took her to the local priest and said, my kid is having dreams. So the priest, I suppose, kind of like a therapist, would ask some questions. So there are some things we know that she was young. She was not yet married. And, like most young girls, they dream of, finding the knight in shining armor. They dream of finding a really great husband, just like men dream of finding the perfect woman. So Joan of Arc, as a young girl, it has been documented in the French, legal code and records and everything that she was not married, and that when these visions began, she was, 13 or 14 years old. So in terms of was she beautiful, she came from a peasant family, and she worked tending sheep and was kind of hanging out in nature. So, if you're from a peasant family, you're probably not very fat. So I would imagine she would be kind of slim and hardworking and a good daughter. She had some brothers and a sister, but her parents took her to the local priest, and then the local priest said, well, maybe we better go up the hierarchy and see what else we got going on here. And they took her to talk to a different priest or bishop. And when we use the word vision or voices, there's different ways of interpreting that. For example, the psychiatric label schizophrenia, documents what are the symptoms of a schizophrenic. Well, one of them is, physical manifestations, like you feel that there's spiders crawling all over you, but there are no spiders, or you hear voices, but there's no one standing around you. So, Joan of Arc was living in like pre-psychiatric times, but voices meant something or someone was speaking to her. And so the story of Joan of Arc is kind of the unfolding of who was speaking to this young girl.
When,
what was the question?
When I was in London, if you ever in London, you go to Globe Theatre. It's I think it's a reconstruction of the original theatre that stood there well, and where Shakespeare had his plays.
Yeah.
And had at the time, or has anyway. And I think Shakespeare, he wrote a play on Joan of Arc. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I wanted to go and see it at the time, but I couldn't. But maybe he did. He wrote a play with Joan of Arc, but she was a villain in it, probably because she was French. I don't want to go into that.
I don't know. I don't know of any Shakespeare play about Joan of Arc, but we're going to look that up. I know that in 1960, so the Vatican Council is 1962, where Pope John Paul XXIII says there's a universal call to holiness. It's not just priests and nuns that are supposed to be trying to be holy, but we're all called to be holy. And around that same time, Leonard Cohen wrote in 1961 a beautiful lyrical ballad that tells the story of Joan of Arc. And in his song, he's one of my favorite, composers, musicians, whatever. He tells the story of Joan of Arc, and his poem or his song starts off that the flames followed Joan of Arc. No man could get her through the smoky night. She was such a cold and lonesome heroine. So the song Joan of Arc has been interpreted and sung again by Judy Collins. I remember I was about 15 years old when I heard Judy Collins sing it. And it's about how Joan of Arc has been tried as a witch for heresy against the church, even though she saved France. But it's about when she's being led to the pyre or the fire. And in his song, there's a voice inside the fire that's speaking. And this is the poetry of Leonard Cohen. The voice says, "I am fire," he replied. "I love your solitude and your pride." And then the woman says, "Fire, make your body cold when I give you mine to hold." And saying this, she stepped inside to be his one, his only bride. And deep into the fiery heart, he took the dust of Joan of Arc. So Leonard Cohen later in his life became a Buddhist, but he wrote this in 1961. He was young. And that's about the mystical union with Christ. So Joan of Arc gets what she wants, she's got her man, she only had to like burn to death. But
you said she was tried, condemned, and burned at the stake, right? And
yeah.
but then the church, I guess, debunked her charges later, and she became saint of
Yeah,
France, I guess.
yeah.
But I don't think it's about religion. I think it's more about politics.
Thanks for sharing. No,
I think so. Right?
no,
Don't you agree?
it's about yeah. Well, it's about a lot of things. I mean, it's about the 100 Years' War. It's about misogyny. It's about the church not wanting to think that a woman could lead an army. It's about the fact that she would not renounce her visions and submit her visions to the church authority and stop wearing men's clothing. She wasn't wearing men's clothing because she's a cross-dresser. She was called by God to go and lead the army at Orleans. She's also called the Maid of Orleans. And so like the church,
No, it's called Orleans, I guess.
Yeah, and like she she was there was a lot of trials and mistrials, but the whole case was not handled very well, and there's more people going back in and looking at it. But she held on to her vision, and it was kind of like, if I have to go to death by fire, so be it. I am a obedient servant of God. And right up there next to Sir Thomas More is another famous saint and lawyer. If this is the way I have to go, God's will be done. But there's a lot of political stuff going on now in the church, whether or not a divorce, for a long time, if you were divorced, you were not allowed to receive communion. And if you were gay, you weren't supposed to say anything about it. There's a lot of politics tied up. And well, what part of the politics did you find intriguing?
Well, the France was at war with Britain, and I guess when Joan was burned at the stake, they did. After she died, the English, I guess, they racked back the coals to, so that no one could claim she had escaped, and they then burned the body twice more. So that's not about religion, that's about the politics, because they wanted to prevent any collection of relics, and because there was a war, and she led the army against them.
Well, there's a lot of different stories about what happened to the body and the ashes. One of the things I read is that they were scattered into the Seine River, Seine, and the
but after they've been burned twice more.
But I don't know if that's true or not. I think what is interesting or intriguing to me about Joan of Arc is that she continues to be a champion of causes. She's continues to appear on like T-shirts, like people make T-shirt designs, people make albums about her, people write songs about her, people draw her. That her presence as a person continues to live on. So, it's like Frida Kahlo or Vincent van Gogh. They weren't saints or anything, but even though they're gone, like Van Gogh never experienced success in his lifetime, but he is quite the artist. You were saying a few days ago that the film Little Big Man, starring Dustin Hoffman, has the line in it, "Today's a good day to die." And one of our subscribers, Michael, was saying, yeah, he really likes that film. And I was just wondering, I wonder if Michael is named after Saint Michael. I mean, I know my name is Pat. I'm named after Saint Patrick. Is there a Saint Roman? Are you named after any saints?
I don't know. I don't think so. Well, now when you're asking it, I'm thinking, but I don't know what saint I'm named after. Maybe it wasn't because of any saint. I don't know, really. I don't know.
I
Interesting
mean, are you
question.
named after an uncle or a grandfather? Or like, how
No,
did
no,
how did you
never.
get your name?
I mean, I don't know. I seriously never thought about it. Maybe I should have.
Hmm. Well, I don't know. I mean, when we were talking about today's a good day to die the other day, and we were talking about some serious topics, and I said, "Well, what do you think you need to work on?" And or maybe we were both talking about. You said, "Well, I don't know, maybe humility." And I can't remember if I told the story or not, but I was teaching at this Catholic school in Houston, St. Pius X, and it was boys and girls, high school. I was teaching like art history and composition, philosophy, a bunch of stuff. And I remember uh, going to sleep, and in my dream, I heard the words Saint Martin de Porres, Saint Martin de Porres. And then I woke up and was thinking like, well, that's a weird dream. I never heard of anybody named Saint Martin de Porres. And I just shook it off as a meaningless dream, like some gibberish from, the day. Then I don't know, about a week later, a few days later, I was in Walmart or like some big convenience store, big giant store, wandering around looking for trash bags. And I just wandered by this display of holy candles and holy little tiny statues. So they had St. Jude and they had St. Teresa and they had St. Patrick. And I had this feeling like, come closer and look closer. And then I looked at this little skinny black saint who was holding a broom and had a couple dogs next to his feet. And I kept thinking, I've never seen that saint before in my life. And I picked up that little statue and I turned it over, and the name of that saint was Saint Martin de Porres. I had never heard of him before, never. And I bought the saint and took it home and started to read about Saint Martin de Porres. Come to find out, he was the patron saint of humility. And I was pretty high on my horse of pride, thinking I'm teaching philosophy. I'm teaching art history. I am the super teacher of the world. And then I began to think, well, I wonder if there's anything that St. Martin de Porres can teach me. And even though it's been many years since then, I still have that little statue of St. Martin de Porres. So was I crazy? Did I hear voices? Who was talking to me?
Could you spell the last part of his name, Saint Martin who?
Saint Martin, D-E-D, then P-O-R-R-E-S. P-O-R-R-E-S, Saint Martin de Porres. And he was a groundskeeper at a monastery or a convent. He was just a guy who swept the yard. And he had always kind of wanted to be a priest, but he didn't have any education. Maybe he didn't have any money to contribute to the church or something like that. And he was a guy that just like swept the grounds.
I never knew about this man.
Yeah, I never knew about him either. I was surprised that I'm always moving things around and opening up boxes and going through old, photographs. And all of a sudden I opened up this box and this little statue fell out. I mean, I was sitting down, I was fumbling through this box, and this little statue fell out. I go, oh, hello, St. Martin de Porres. I mean, I didn't say that, but I was remembering that. And then I thought maybe Maybe I should think about humility again. I don't know. Do not know.
Isn't it interesting? Like there is first time for everything. I mean, you think you've known and you've seen everything, but there is something else you've never seen or knew.
That is so true.